Clara thought that her perfect life in the suburbs of Chicago would remain cloudless forever. But when David, her devoted husband, comes home early to find her with another man, the world of both of them is shattered. The betrayal sets off a chain of events where David's every move is a cold-blooded plan of revenge. Will Clara be able to save herself and her daughter from the consequences? And will David leave room for forgiveness? Find out in this suspenseful story of love, betrayal, and justice. David Wilson eased his sedan into the driveway of his suburban Chicago home, the golden glow of the late afternoon sun glinting off the hood. At 38, he carried the quiet pride of a man who'd built a good life, a thriving career as an engineer, a two-story house in a tidy neighborhood, and a family he'd poured his heart into. His wife, Clara, 36, was the charming center of their social circle, always ready with a warm smile. Their daughter, Emily, 16, was a bright spark, her eyes set on Harvard. Today, after wrapping a grueling water purification project, his firm had given him a rare day off tomorrow. For once, David dreamed of a quiet evening with his girls, no emails, no deadlines, just them. He killed the engine and sat for a moment, studying the house. The lawn was pristine, thanks to his weekend mowing. The porch swing swayed gently, where he'd spent countless evenings reading to Emily when she was small. Every brick, every shingle, paid for with years of overtime and sacrifices, missed barbecues, late nights at the office. It was worth it, he thought, grabbing his briefcase and stepping out. Tall and lean, with short chestnut hair flecked with gray, David moved with the steady purpose of a man who fixed problems for a living. As he approached the front door, a beat-up truck caught his eye down the street. Nate Crow's. David's jaw tightened. Nate, a friend from Clara's college days, had always rubbed him wrong, too loud, too quick to ask for favors he never returned. Alone here, a job reference there, always with that smug grin. Probably here to charm Clara out of dinner again, David thought, shaking it off. He turned the key in the lock. The house was too quiet. No hum of the TV, no pop music blaring from Emily's room, no clatter of Clara in the kitchen. Clara? Em? I'm home early, he called, setting his briefcase by the door. Silence answered. He loosened his tie, unease creeping in, and walked through the house. The kitchen was empty, the dining room bare. In the living room, a half-empty bottle of wine sat on the coffee table, two glasses beside it, one marked with Clara's signature red lipstick. His stomach twisted. Then he heard it, a soft giggle from upstairs, Clara's voice, followed by a low murmur. David froze, his pulse hammering in his ears. He wanted to call out again, to shatter the moment with normalcy, but something held him back. Years of solving equations, of spotting flaws in complex systems, had honed his instincts. He climbed the stairs, each step deliberate, the carpet muffling his approach. The master bedroom door was ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the hall. The sounds grew clearer, whispers, rustling sheets, another laugh. David's hand hovered over the knob, his breath shallow. He pushed the door open, and the world stopped. Clara lay tangled in the sheets, her blonde hair fanned across his pillow. Nate's arm was draped over her, his familiar smirk frozen as he turned. Their clothes littered the floor, a careless trail from the door to the bed David had paid for, where he'd held Clara through sleepless nights, where they'd planned their future. Clara saw him first. Her eyes widened, lips parting, but no words came. She didn't scramble to cover herself, didn't scream, just stared, caught. Nate shifted, his expression shifting from surprise to something else, a glint of defiance, as if daring David to react. The air was thick, electric with betrayal. David stood rooted in the doorway, his face a mask. Every detail burned into him, the smudge of lipstick on Nate's collar, the faint scent of Clara's perfume, the way the evening light caught the edge of her wedding ring. Say something, Clara finally whispered, her voice steady but brittle. Before David could respond, a thud echoed in the hall. He turned to see Emily, her backpack slumped on the floor, her face twisted, not with shock, but with anger. Why do you always ruin everything, Dad? She spat, her voice cracking. At 16, she was all sharp edges and defiance, her dark hair pulled back, her eyes blazing. You're never here. You don't even care about us. David looked at his daughter, the girl he'd taught to ride a bike, whose college fund he'd built since her first breath. Her words hit harder than the scene before him. Nate's been more of a dad than you ever were, she added, and something inside him snapped, not loudly, not violently, but with a cold, final crack. Normal men might have shouted, thrown punches, torn the room apart. David wasn't normal. His rage was a quiet thing, a coiled spring, precise and controlled. He felt it settle in his chest, icy and clear, drowning out the hurt. He didn't yell at Clara, didn't lunge at Nate. He just stood there, his silence louder than any outburst. Clara pulled the sheet tighter, suddenly aware of her exposure. "David, please," she started, but he was already turning away. Emily stepped closer, her voice softer now, uncertain. "Dad, I didn't mean." He didn't look back. Down the hall, into the guest room, he pulled a suitcase from the closet. His movements were mechanical, shirts folded, shoes aligned, laptop secured. Clara appeared in the doorway, a robe hastily tied around her. That's it. No fight, no argument. Her tone held a strange disappointment, as if she'd expected him to beg. David zipped the suitcase shut. "Enjoy your new life," he said, his voice low, not a threat but a promise, delivered with the certainty of a man who'd already calculated the outcome. He brushed past her, down the stairs, grabbing his keys and wallet. Behind him, Nate's laughter rang out, Emily's voice joining in, uncertain but sharp. The front door closed with a soft click, more final than a slam. Outside, the dusk felt heavy, the neighborhood too calm for the storm in his mind. David slid into his car, the suitcase on the passenger seat. He didn't drive off in a fury. He sat, hands on the wheel, mapping his next move. Clara thought she'd won. Emily thought she'd chosen better. Nate thought he'd outsmarted him. They were wrong. David Wilson was an engineer, a man who fixed broken systems. And this was just a problem to solve. David Wilson's new apartment in downtown Chicago was a far cry from his suburban haven, a stark, one-bedroom box with bare walls the color of ash and a single window overlooking a noisy street. At 38, he traded manicured lawns for cracked sidewalks, but the simplicity suited him. All he needed was a desk, a laptop, and silence to think. The betrayal still burned, Clara's laughter, Nate's smug grin, Emily's venomous words, but David didn't wallow. He was an engineer. Problems weren't emotions, they were systems to be dismantled and rebuilt. And this system was about to collapse. He spent his first night awake, the glow of his laptop casting shadows across the room. With methodical precision, he mapped his life like a blueprint. Every account, every asset, every dollar, he'd built it all. Clara had opted to be a stay-at-home mom after Emily was born, leaving finances to him. She'd spent freely, never questioning the numbers, while Emily demanded new phones, new clothes, new dreams. Now, that trust was his leverage. By dawn, he had a plan, cold and sharp as a blade. At 8:45 a.m., David stood outside the bank, briefcase in hand, his pressed slacks and crisp shirt a stark contrast to the chaos in his mind. The branch manager, Susan, greeted him warmly. She'd helped him open Emily's college fund years ago. "Early start, Mr. Wilson," she said, smiling. "What's on your mind?" "Changes," David replied, his voice neutral. "I need to secure all my accounts." Susan raised an eyebrow but led him to her office. 2 hours later, he walked out with everything locked down. Joint accounts drained and closed, new ones opened in his name at a rival bank, Clara's credit cards canceled, automatic bill payments suspended. His signature was a guillotine, severing their access with surgical efficiency. Next, he drove to his lawyer's office in the Loop. Roger Patel, a wiry man who'd handled David's parents' estate, peered over his glasses as David slid a folder across the desk. "You're sure about this?" Roger asked, scanning the documents to transfer the house and cars solely to David's name. The property had always been his, but he wanted no loopholes. "This is decisive. I found Clara with another man," David said flatly. "Emily told me to get lost. I'm done." Roger's face tightened, not with judgment but respect. "I'll file these today," he said. "Divorce proceedings?" "Not yet," David replied. "I want everything secured first." He left the office lighter, each step a brick in the wall he was building. By afternoon, he'd visited the DMV to retitle the cars, called the utility companies to list himself as the sole account holder, and stopped by Emily's school to redirect all financial notices to him alone. Every move was a checkmate, planned before they even knew the game had started. Back at the apartment, David ordered takeout he barely tasted, eating mechanically while his laptop hummed. He changed every password, banking, email, streaming accounts, even the cloud where family photos lived. He downloaded those to a private drive, then revoked Clara and Emily's access. The digital footprint of his old life was erased, piece by piece. His phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts. Clara and Emily were still basking in their victory, oblivious to the ground shifting beneath them. Meanwhile, in the suburban house, Clara sipped wine with Nate, laughing as if nothing had changed. Emily scrolled her phone upstairs, posting selfies, her world intact. The lights blazed, the fridge hummed, their lives floated on the illusion of stability David had funded for years. But cracks were forming. That evening, Clara tried to order pizza online. Her card was declined. She frowned, blaming a glitch, and used another. Declined again. She laughed it off, but a flicker of unease stirred. David didn't sleep that night either. Adrenaline kept him sharp, his mind a chessboard. He cataloged vulnerabilities, Clara's spending habits, Emily's reliance on his money for her perfect life, Nate's parasitic presence. By 4 a.m., he'd inventoried every asset, retirement accounts, stocks, Emily's college fund, all in his control. He showered, the hot water doing nothing to thaw the ice in his veins, and dressed in another crisp shirt. Today wasn't a day off anymore. It was the first day of his campaign. He drove past the house at dawn, slowing just enough to see Nate's truck still in the driveway. Music pulsed faintly through the windows, a party he wasn't invited to. David's grip tightened on the wheel, but his face stayed blank. Let them dance, he thought. The music would stop soon enough. By the third day, the first ripples hit. Clara called the bank, her voice sharp with confusion, only to learn the accounts were gone. She texted David, "Where's your paycheck?" "The account's empty." He didn't reply, saving the message as evidence. Emily tried to buy lunch at school, her card failed. She stormed home, whining to Clara, who was dialing utility companies. Each call met with the same answer: only Mr. Wilson can authorize changes. Nate, lounging on the couch, offered no help, his eyes darting nervously. David sat in his apartment, sipping black coffee, watching the storm build from afar. His phone buzzed, Clara again, then Emily, then an unknown number, likely Nate. He let them pile up, each missed call a brick in his fortress. At work, he told his boss he needed to go remote for a few weeks, citing personal matters. His reputation earned him a nod, no questions asked. Back at his desk, he opened his laptop and pulled up the home security system he'd installed last year, cameras Clara had forgotten about. The footage was a goldmine. Nate drinking David's whiskey, Clara planning dinners with his groceries, Emily sneaking out to parties. He downloaded it all, every frame a weapon. That night, Clara stood in the kitchen, staring at a shut-off notice from the power company. "This is a mistake," she muttered, dialing David again. Voicemail. Emily slouched at the table, her phone useless without Wi-Fi. "Fix it, Mom," she snapped. Nate shrugged, slipping out the back door, his truck roaring to life. Clara watched him go, a seed of doubt sprouting. She didn't know it yet, but David was already 3 moves ahead. He leaned back in his chair, the city lights flickering outside. Clara thought she'd traded up. Emily thought she'd chosen better. Nate thought he'd won. They had no idea what was coming. David wasn't just taking back his life, he was rewriting the rules. And he never lost. David Wilson's apartment in downtown Chicago had become his war room, a fortress of cold efficiency. The bare walls and humming laptop were his allies, each keystroke a step in his calculated dismantling of the life he'd once shared with Clara and Emily. At 38, he moved with the precision of a man who'd spent years solving impossible equations, but now the puzzle was personal. Clara's betrayal with Nate, Emily's venomous rejection, these weren't just wounds, they were flaws in a system he was rewriting. A week had passed since he'd locked down their finances, and the cracks in their world were widening. David sat at his desk, the city's pulse muted beyond the window. His phone buzzed relentlessly, Clara's calls, Emily's texts, even Nate's pathetic attempts from burner numbers. He ignored them, archiving each as evidence, his face unreadable. The security footage from the suburban house painted a grim picture, Clara pacing, her perfect blonde hair now a messy bun, Emily sulking, her designer clothes swapped for wrinkled tees, Nate, still lounging like he owned the place. Oblivious to the news tightening. David leaned back, sipping coffee gone cold, when an email pinged, a colleague from his old firm, Mike Torres. "Call me. It's about Nate," the subject read. Curious, David dialed. Mike's voice was low, urgent. "Look, man, I heard what happened. Nate's been running his mouth at the bar. He's got recordings of him and Clara. Said he was going to use them to squeeze her for cash, your cash. Thought you should know." David's grip tightened on the phone, but his voice stayed level. "Recordings? Yeah. Bragged about storing them online. Guy's a snake, David. Always was." Mike paused. "You okay?" "I'm fine," David lied, ending the call. His mind raced, not with anger but opportunity. Nate wasn't just a betrayer. He was a blackmailer, a loose end begging to be cut. David contacted a discreet tech contact from a past project. No questions asked, cash only. By midnight, he had access to Nate's cloud account, cracked by a sloppy password Nate never changed. The files were there. Grainy videos, not just of Clara but others, each a timestamped betrayal. David's stomach churned, but he didn't flinch. He downloaded everything, organized it into folders, and planned his strike. The next morning, he crafted an anonymous email from a burner account. To Clara, he attached a single screenshot. Nate with another woman, dated last week, alongside a message. Ask Nate about Jessica. Check his phone. He hit send and waited. Hours later, his phone lit up with Clara's number, her voicemail a mix of panic and rage. What did you do? Who sent this? David saved it. Silent. By evening, the security footage showed chaos, Clara screaming, Nate dodging thrown dishes, his truck peeling out of the driveway for good. Clara wasn't done fighting. She hired a lawyer, a young hotshot named Greg Vance, but David had anticipated this. Before leaving the house, he consulted Chicago's top 3 divorce attorneys, creating conflicts of interest. Vance was out of his depth, his motion sloppy, easily countered by David's lawyer, Roger Patel. Clara's text grew desperate. This isn't fair, David. You can't take everything. He didn't reply, but when a letter arrived from Emily, slipped under his apartment door, he paused. Dad, it began in her looping scrawl. I'm sorry. I was angry. I didn't mean it. Please talk to me. I miss you. For a moment, David's resolve wavered. He saw Emily at 6, clinging to his hand at the zoo, her laughter brighter than sunlight. But then he remembered her words, Nate's better than you, and the ice returned. He filed the letter away, unanswered. She'd chosen her side. Clara's next move came faster than he expected. She showed up at his office, bypassing security with a fake story about a family emergency. David found her waiting in the lobby, her usual polish gone, jeans faded, eyes red from crying. We need to talk, she said, voice trembling. He led her to a conference room, keeping the door open, every word recorded on his phone. You're destroying us, she started, hands twisting. The bank, the cards, the house, it's all gone. Emily can't even buy lunch at school. Is this what you want? David leaned back, calm as stone. You wanted a new life. I gave you one. This isn't a life. Clara's voice cracked. Nate's gone, okay? I kicked him out. I made a mistake. Can't we fix this? A mistake, David repeated, his gaze piercing. Was it a mistake when you laughed with him in my bed? When Emily told me to disappear? Clara flinched, but he pressed on. You thought you'd trade me in. Now you're free. Enjoy it. She reached for his arm. He stepped back. Please, David. For Emily. She's falling apart. Then maybe she shouldn't have chosen Nate over me, he said, and walked out, leaving her sobbing. Back at his apartment, he reviewed the footage, Clara's pleas, her admission about Nate. More evidence, more leverage. The next day, David escalated. He sent another anonymous email, this time to Nate's contacts, former clients, drinking buddies, attaching proof of his side hustles, debts, and lies. By noon, Nate's social media was a firestorm, his reputation ashes. A final clip went to a woman named Jessica, Nate's latest mark, ensuring he'd find no refuge. David drove past the house that night, lights dim, Clara's car gone. Emily sat on the porch, head in her hands, alone. Work offered a rare distraction. David's water purification project had caught the eye of his firm's CEO, earning him a meeting for a potential promotion. Over coffee with a colleague, he met Ellen Carter, a sharp-witted lawyer who asked pointed questions and didn't pry about his ringless finger. Her smile lingered in his mind, a spark of something new, but he pushed it aside. There was still work to do. Clara called again, her voice raw. You sent those emails, didn't you? About Nate. David stayed silent. You're ruining us, she whispered. Why? Why? He finally said, low and cold. Because you ruined me first. He hung up, blocking her number. The game wasn't over. Clara and Emily were scrambling, but David was already planning the next move. They thought they'd broken him. They were about to learn what broken really meant. David Wilson's life was a study in contrasts. His downtown Chicago apartment, once a sterile command center, now held traces of a new rhythm. Takeout containers stacked neatly, a second coffee mug in the sink. At 38, he was rebuilding, his engineer's mind turning chaos into order. The betrayal, Clara's affair with Nate, Emily's stinging rejection who had hardened him, but the cracks in his former family's world were now chasms. 3 weeks after he'd cut their financial lifelines, Clara and Emily were unraveling, and David watched with the detachment of a scientist observing a failed experiment. His laptop glowed, displaying the latest fallout. The suburban house, once a symbol of his sacrifices, was under foreclosure, the bank's notice taped to the door. Clara's SUV had been repossessed, replaced by a borrowed clunker from her sister in Indiana. Emily's college fund, meticulously built for her Harvard dreams, was redirected to David's private account. The security footage he'd pulled before leaving showed Clara sorting bills in panic, Emily staring blankly at a dead phone, their lives shrinking by the day. David's phone buzzed, another blocked call from Clara, her voicemails a descent from anger to desperation. He saved them all, evidence of their reckoning. Clara fought back, but her moves were feeble. Her lawyer, Greg Vance, filed motions for temporary support, but David's attorney, Roger Patel, countered effortlessly, citing Clara's infidelity and Emily's age. David had ensured Chicago's top lawyers were conflicted out, leaving Clara with dwindling options. She tried calling mutual friends, pleading for loans, but David's quiet outreach, subtle hints about her betrayal, had dried up their sympathy. One evening, she showed up at his apartment, banging on the door, her voice raw through the wood. "David, please. We're losing everything." He stood inches from the door, silent, letting security escort her away. Emily's rebellion had crumbled into regret. She sent another letter, slipped through his mail slot. "Dad, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Can we talk?" David read it, his jaw tight. He saw her at 10, beaming as he pushed her on the swing, but her words, "Nate's better than you," echoed louder. He filed the letter with the others, unanswered. Yet, a flicker of doubt stirred. Was he punishing her too harshly? He pushed it down, focusing on the plan. The house wasn't their only loss. Clara's job hunt yielded nothing. Her resume, thin from years as a stay-at-home mom, couldn't compete. She landed part-time work cleaning offices, her manicured hands now rough, her pride shattered. Emily, once the queen of her high school, took a job at a diner to cover groceries, her designer wardrobe replaced by thrift store finds. Her Harvard acceptance letter, framed proudly months ago, was now a cruel reminder of a missed deposit deadline. Their social circle, built on David's income, turned cold, whispers of Clara's affair sealing their exile. David, meanwhile, thrived. His water purification project earned him a promotion to lead a new division at his firm, his salary doubled, his name on the door. At a company event, he reconnected with Ellen Carter, the lawyer he'd met weeks ago. Over drinks, her sharp wit and quiet confidence disarmed him. She didn't pry about his past, didn't need his protection, just shared stories of her latest case, her eyes warm but guarded. "You're intense, David," she said, smiling. "But I like a challenge." He drove home that night, her number saved, a spark of possibility cutting through his icy resolve. But the past clung tight. Driving past the house one evening, David saw Emily on the curb, kicking at her broken-down car, her face crumpled in frustration. She tried calling Clara, then slumped against the hood, defeated. David's phone buzzed. "Dad, my car won't start. I'm late for work. Please help." No demands, just a plea. He watched from a distance as she shouldered her bag and trudged to a bus stop, her silhouette small against the dusk. For a moment, he considered replying, but the memory of her betrayal stopped him. He drove away. Clara's desperation peaked. She ambushed him at a coffee shop near his office, her appearance a shock, hair limp, clothes off the rack, the glow of her former beauty dimmed. "You win, okay," she said, voice breaking as she slid into the booth. "We're moving to my sister's in Indiana. A garage apartment, David. Emily's working nights, failing classes. Is this what you wanted?" David met her gaze, unflinching. "You chose Nate. Emily chose you. I gave you what you asked for. We were a family," Clara whispered, tears spilling. 17 years. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It meant everything," he said, voice low. "Until you threw it away." He stood, leaving her hunched over the table, her sobs drawing stares. Outside, he exhaled, the weight of her pain a faint ripple against his armor. Back at his apartment, David reviewed his next steps. The house sale was imminent, utilities set to shut off. Clara and Emily would leave soon, their lives a shadow of what he built. Yet, Ellen's words from their last meeting lingered. "Revenge is a heavy load, David. What happens when you set it down?" He pushed the thought aside, but it lingered, a crack in his certainty. That night, he dreamed of Emily, not the defiant teen, but the toddler who'd clung to his leg, giggling. He woke with a start, the darkness heavy. His phone glowed with a new text from Emily. "I know I hurt you. I'd do anything to take it back. David stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the reply button. For the first time, he didn't know his next move. David Wilson stood across from the Chicago suburban house that had once been his sanctuary, the sold sign in the yard a quiet testament to his victory. At 38, he was a man remade, his career soaring, his heart guarded, his past reduced to ashes. The betrayal, Clara's affair with Nate, Emily's cruel rejection, had forged him into something colder, a strategist who'd dismantled their lives with surgical precision. 2 months had passed since he'd cut their financial roots, and now Clara and Emily were gone, exiled to a cramped garage apartment in Indiana. David's new condo, with its sleek lines and city views, marked the start of a life unburdened by their shadows. Yet, as he watched a young couple carry boxes into the house, he felt no triumph, only a hollow clarity. His phone buzzed with a text from Ellen Carter, the lawyer who'd become a steady presence. Dinner at 7? New place on 7th. David typed, perfect, a faint smile breaking his stoic mask. Ellen was different, sharp, self-reliant, her warmth a challenge to his defenses. Their relationship, still new, was a tentative step towards something real, but the weight of his revenge lingered, a ghost he couldn't fully banish. The house sale had closed that morning. David signed the papers at 3 p.m., the process brisk, final. Clara would sign hers later, the realtor ensuring no overlap. He'd driven here on instinct, needing to see the end. The young couple laughed as they unpacked, their excitement a stark contrast to the pain that had unfolded within those walls. David's lawyer, Roger Patel, called as he watched. It's done, Roger said. Clara signed. She asked about you, wanted to know if you'd softened. Not my concern, David replied, his voice flat. Roger hesitated. She's struggling. Barely covers rent with her cleaning job. Emily's working at a diner, barely passing school. David said nothing, ending the call. Their suffering was the consequence of their choices, a ledger balanced. Yet, a nagging thought surfaced, Ellen's words from weeks ago. Revenge doesn't rebuild, David. What's next? He was about to leave when a battered Honda pulled up. Clara stepped out. Thinner, her once vibrant blonde hair cropped short, her clothes plain. She froze, spotting David's car, her eyes weary but resolute. This confrontation, he realized, was inevitable, the final act. He stepped out as she approached, her steps slow, like a soldier waving a white flag. I knew you'd be here, Clara said, voice soft, cracked. Roger said you signed already. I did, David replied, leaning against his car, arms crossed. Why are you here? She glanced at the house, the couple now arranging plants on the porch. To say goodbye, I guess. To what we had. Her eyes met his, raw with regret. You won, David. We've lost everything. The house, the cars, Emily's future. Are you happy now? David's gaze was steady. You lost what I built. You chose Nate. Emily chose you. I gave you what you wanted. Clara's lip trembled. It was a mistake. I was stupid, lonely. 17 years, David. Doesn't that count for something? It counted until you laughed in my bed with him, he said, voice low, cutting. Until Emily told me to disappear. You burned it down, Clara. I just cleared the rubble. She wiped her eyes, voice breaking. Emily's suffering. She's 16, working nights, sleeping on a couch. She didn't deserve this. She was old enough to choose, David said, but the words felt heavier now. Clara shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping. I don't know you anymore. The man I married wouldn't destroy his daughter's life. That man died when you betrayed him, David said, glancing at his watch. This is your last goodbye. He turned to his car, but Clara grabbed his sleeve, desperate. Please, for Emily, she whispered. She needs you. David gently pulled free. She needed me when she called Nate her father. Live with it. He slid into the driver's seat, Clara's sobs fading as he started the engine. In the rear view, she stood alone, a figure diminished, swallowed by the dusk. That night, David returned to his condo, the city skyline glittering through floor-to-ceiling windows. Ellen was coming over, but first, he opened his laptop. A new email from Emily waited, sent hours ago. Dad, it read, I know I hurt you. I was wrong, stupid. I'm working, studying, trying to fix things. I don't expect forgiveness, but I miss you. I'm sorry. Attached was a photo, a younger Emily, grinning on his shoulders at a fair, his smile wide, unguarded. For the first time, David's armor cracked. He saw her now, not the defiant teen but the girl who'd trusted him, who'd believed he could fix anything. Clara's words echoed. She didn't deserve this. He closed the laptop, staring into the dark. His revenge was complete. Clara was broken, Emily humbled, Nate a pariah in Arizona, scraping by on construction sites. But the victory felt empty, a blueprint with no purpose. He poured a whiskey, the burn grounding him. Ellen arrived, her auburn hair catching the light, her smile softening the room. Over dinner, she sensed his mood. "House sold?" she asked gently. "Yeah," he said, setting down his glass. "Saw Clara today." She begged for Emily. Ellen studied him. "And you? What do you want?" David paused, the question piercing. "I thought I wanted them to hurt like I did. Now, I'm not sure." Ellen reached for his hand, her touch steady. "You're more than your pain, David. Let it go, or it'll define you." The next morning, David made a call. He authorized a one-time payment to a community college in Indiana, enough for Emily's first semester. He included a note. "This is for you, not Clara. Make it count." It wasn't forgiveness, but a door left ajar. He blocked their numbers again, closing the chapter. At his new office, David's team buzzed with progress on his water purification project, his future bright. Ellen texted, "Proud of you." Driving to meet her, David caught his reflection calm, unburdened. The house was gone, the pain fading. He'd won, not by destroying them, but by rebuilding himself. The road ahead was his, and he was ready. Let me know in the comments. What would you do if you found yourself in the shoes of the main characters, caught in a web of betrayal and revenge?